Welcome to the Get Sculpted podcast. We're your hosts, Tiana,
Jordana,
and Marilyn.
This podcast is all about cutting through the noise and giving you the real deal on fat loss, muscle building, and what it really takes to build your 2.0 sculpted self, inside and out. Our motto is to work smarter, not harder. We'll break down science-based and actionable strategies to optimize your metabolism, ditch the diets, and create a sustainable, fit, and healthy lifestyle that actually works for you. So if you're ready to get stronger, not just skinnier, and embrace a body you love, hit that subscribe button and let's get sculpted.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Get Sculpted podcast. We are very happy to be here with you because today we're diving into an important conversation about why, when it comes to reaching your fitness goals, being consistently good beats occasionally great every single time. So if you have found yourself thinking that you need to be more disciplined to reach your goals, or if you've ever found yourself thinking that if you can't follow a plan perfectly, then what's the point of trying? This episode is one that you're going to want to settle in for and definitely share with other women in your life who you know are thinking and believing the same things. So hello, girls, and welcome to the podcast.
Hello.
Hey, this is one of my favorite topics, and I think it's going to be really valuable for people in our community and out of our community.
Yes, absolutely. So let's kick off by saying that a lot of women, especially, and we know this because we are high achievers, perfectionists, and those of you who like to feel like you're in control, they tend to approach fitness with an all or nothing mindset. We've talked about that mindset a lot on the pod. Either they're all in, they're tracking their food, they're hitting every workout, they're doing everything right, or they're the other extreme where they're doing absolutely nothing. And the problem with that, of course, is it creates this exhausting cycle where you're pushing hard, you burn out, then you quit, and then you start again. And that cycle continues over and over and over. But the issue here isn't discipline. The real problem is you are holding yourself to a standard that is completely unrealistic. And it's an unrealistic version of what progress actually looks like. And the three of us get it because we used to think the same thing, right? If we weren't hitting our workouts and sticking to our meal plans, then we felt like we were failing. Been there, ladies?
Like 100% didn't even seem like enough. It was like the 100% was the minimum expectation. And I had to go beyond that every single time. So I'm psyched for today's episode. Yeah. It's going to be a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know myself as well. I always held myself to this unrealistic standard. And then when life got messy, I felt like I failed. So it took me years. I know it took you girls the same to realize that consistency beats perfection every single time. And success is not about being perfect. It's showing up in a way that works with your life. So today's episode is all about breaking this down for you. We're going to talk about why all or nothing is sabotaging your progress. We are going to get into why being consistently good is way more powerful than being occasionally great. And we're going to talk to you about how you can build real consistency without burning out. So, Jord, I would love to kick it off with you. Let's talk about why occasionally great doesn't cut it.
Yeah, I think with occasionally great, it's so interesting because this is when most women, they're not doing enough when they're doing the occasionally great, but they're going all in for like this short period of time. And that short period of time is actually why they're struggling because they're doing this all-in mentality, this I'm going to give it that 150% for the 6-week challenge or the 75 hard or the whatever it is. The diet, the challenge, the whatever. And those parameters are so strict that it's almost impossible to maintain and to bring it into your life. And that's where I think most people go wrong still, even now with so much information about the diet industry.
Yeah.
These short bursts are so unsustainable and you can push yourself for a few weeks. You know, I remember hearing girls say, oh, you could do anything for like 30 days. You could do anything for 90 days or even in a workout, you can do anything for 30 seconds. Yeah, that's true. But what happens after that? And what happens when you want to maintain the results? And this is, I think, the crux of that start and stop cycle where people then get this burnt out feeling where not only are they stopping and starting again over and over and over again, but you're also carrying the weight of the failure from the previous time.
That's right.
And you're not celebrating your wins either. This is one thing we always talk about therapy, but my therapist always says is if you don't actually recognize how far you've come, you're never going to amplify more of that. And
very good point.
Yeah, there's a book called The Gap in the Gain. I don't know if have you guys read that?
No.
I haven't read that one.
You would like it. It's all about high achievers and how we tend to live in the gap, which means like, what haven't I achieved? What haven't I achieved? And we're not in the gain, which means holy crap, like look how far I've come in the last 4 months, 6 months.
That is such a good point.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we need a pod on just that. But it ties into, you're always kind of putting yourself down for not living up to this really unrealistic standard that you're not even supposed to maintain all the time if you can barely do it for 30 days.
It's like you're always looking forward to the next thing as opposed to taking a minute and
living in the moment.
Exactly.
Yeah. Appreciating the norm.
Yeah.
Exactly. And also, I heard this analogy. I thought it was kind of funny to this part of the topic. It's kind of like when most of us would color our hair. I definitely do. I have some grays going on that I'm, trying to keep under wraps.
Out, but yeah.
And it's like trying to color your roots and then washing it out before the timer's up because you're rushing to try and get the result. But you're doing that like over and over and over again. You're never really going to get the color that you're really looking for, the richness, the coverage that you might need. And therefore, like that full transformation, you're always going to be disappointed and think that you have to start over. But really what happened is you didn't wait long enough for the magic to actually happen. You didn't follow the steps properly. You didn't wait long enough. And you just did like the quick fix yet again. And so that's why so many people end up disappointed. And then they get resentful and being like, I have to start all over again. I have to try this again.
And, that's also where that relationship comes with like dieting and exercise, because we talk to a lot of women who have this really negative perception and relationship with these things. They see it as like drudgery. So that's the other thing, that this short burst of like hardcore and then falling off
reinforces it.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So the big takeaway here is that these short, intense bursts, they don't really create real lasting change. They might make some initial progress. They might be great to kickstart things, but you have to have a much longer plan that's going to get you to the real goal, and not just get you to the goal, but keep you there long term. That's really the idea, is that you don't really want to be dieting forever.
Right. And having to restart over and over and over.
Exactly.
So T, I'd love for you to like kind of take it over here and talk to us a little bit more about what does that flip side look like?
Yeah, one saying that we love coming back to is we don't want 75 hard. We want 365 consistent.
Love that.
Preach.
Yeah.
Right? And you know what? It doesn't sound sexy, right? I get it. It's like, yeah, I'm really hard. But it's like, okay, are you a hard ass? Sure, you're a hard ass for 75 days. That's great. But there's something to be said for all the time. And the magic is in the middle. That's another saying that
love that.
I love that.
I come back to, because it's not about the destination. It's about who you become in the process. And this is why you can't discount the power of what are your everyday habits. How do you actually spend your time training, eating? How do you live your life? What standards do you set? We always talk about these things. And this is your 365 consistent. And for me, one thing I come back to for myself is, just like you guys, I was used to giving 110% and then feeling so disappointed when I didn't meet that. And then another insight I had from therapy was, what if we gave 80% consistently? What if it wasn't so up and down and up and down? The magic is in that middle, right? Like, what would giving a consistent 80% be like? At the beginning, you might be like, oh man, I got more to give. But most of the time, you're way better off never kind of dipping below a certain point and just hovering there, because that's when you stack those wins.
The way that I like to think about it is that 20%, you're saving it for the days when you have nothing left.
Yes.
And you've gone to the point where like, oh, there's just those days, the kids didn't sleep well, or the days are dragging on, you have extra responsibilities, or you have a work project that's really just taking all of your energy. And if you go at 80%, you're preserving some of that 20%, that energy for the days when you're maybe like living on a 40. And if you're at a 40 and you can give yourself another 20% and bring it up to a 60, heck, you're probably doing way more than you would have otherwise, right? You're maybe still getting your steps in. You're still drinking your water, you're eating mostly on plant foods. This is where that messy middle is that's going to get you that consistent progress over time. I think it's very underestimated.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I know we've been saying a lot of sayings today. We've got our favorite sayings, but a saying that my therapist talks to me about, or at least did when I was in this cycle, was if you have, let's say, 40% to give and you give 40%, you've actually given 100%. And I remember, like, obviously that sounds so simple, but when she said that, it clicked so much, because what does that 100% look like at different times in your life, at different stages?
Seasons.
Right, exactly. So that's one of my favorites that applies to this.
Yeah. And even if I zoom out for a second as to kind of what we're talking about for the listener, it's really, in the beginning, you want to define what those standards are for yourself. And then you basically want to have kind of your minimum standards and, hey, this is where I want to stay consistent. And don't get me wrong, sometimes you are going to have stints where, hey, I'm in a fat loss phase. I'm prepping for a photo shoot. I really want to double down. And sometimes you're going to have those periods where you just don't have as much to give, like you said, Jord. So I think that's important to recognize. And I think a good thing to start is to just ask yourself, can you see yourself doing this exact same routine that you're doing now for the next 5 years? Like, do you still see yourself maintaining that?
Good question.
I always loved saying that when keto was big. I don't think it's as big, thank God.
No.
But I feel like now it's carnivore.
We're moving on.
They'd be like, oh, 5 years. No, honey, not 5 years. And I'm like, so why are you doing it now? Please tell me that. If you're not going to do it in 5 years, there's no point in wasting so much time and energy on that now. So you really want to define what's something you can follow for a lifetime, not just what you can follow for 6 weeks. Because to your point earlier, you can do anything for 6 weeks. And then I think giving yourself as well permission to not be perfect, because you're human and there's 8 billion of us and we're all, not immune to making mistakes in the journey. So it's also knowing that when that does happen, it's not the slip up that defines you. It's how fast you can come back from that and come back to your standards. And I know you guys can relate to that. We're all kind of recovering perfectionists, right?
We're all nodding going, yeah.
We're just a bunch of recovering perfectionists trying to embrace our mistakes and the journey along the way.
It's true. And it's so much more fun now. Like, I see fitness now as fun. I see it as like a positive challenge. And it's changed everything, my relationship with myself even, because now I'm not hating my life every single second. And, you said about like the journey too. This is how we build these habits. So when you're going fast and furious, that's the other thing. You're missing out on the joys, but you're actually missing out on the habit building. So it's so important to be in that middle. I'm glad you brought that up.
Everything is an opportunity. That's how I frame it for my clients. And this is what I tell them too. In a check-in, when they might say, oh gosh, this was not a good moment for me. I had a slip up. I'm like, okay, and what are you going to do differently next time? Can we move on without guilt from this? Or if it was even a really good couple weeks, I say, awesome. How can you be 1% better? What does that look like for you? Because I think often we think more. I need to do more. It's not enough. Two things can be true. You can say, I did really well and I'm going to do a little bit better. And that's how you slowly become your 2.0 self. So it's really defining, what does a 1% improvement look like? Because if you improve just 1% better every day, you'll be 37 times better in a year.
I love that.
I love that.
And I also think even on the weeks or the check-ins, like when I'm reading things from our clients, I'm like, well, even though you had a couple of slip-ups or things didn't go perfectly to plan, what did you do well? Because you couldn't have fallen flat on your face 100% of the time either.
Every day,
all day, 24/7. So also even, we're so quick to see the negative. It's really, really easy to fall into that trap. And it's also redirecting them to come back and be like, you did some things right here too. So maybe we're at maintenance this week instead of making some progress, but that might be a win in of itself too. So it's really pulling everybody back and kind of saying, what's the win here? How do we redirect and keep going?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really what it's all about. It's giving yourself permission to do that. That's really the message we want you guys to take home, is that it's not about being perfect. It's just about taking imperfect action. The small wins really do add up. And that's why we preach consistency. It trumps perfection every single time. If I looked at 52 weeks of your year at the end of the year, how many were you consistent? How many were you inconsistent? Because I can tell you, even if you think those 30-day stints of being balls to the wall are great, I can guarantee your average would still suffer. You would not get a passing grade compared with being consistent.
I actually think that's so important too, to zoom out like that and look at the year, because we also get so fixed on the moment. That's really powerful, actually.
I don't know about you guys. As we're recording this, I'm already thinking of clients who beat themselves up so much. I'm like, I'm going to send this to you.
Yeah.
And if you know, you know, but it's just that reminder that you are headed in the right direction.
And the math doesn't lie. If you were to do 2 or 3 6-week challenges and you went all in for that, it's 12 or 18 weeks out of the year. But if you're consistently working out and food prepping 3 days a week for the entire year, you're actually way further ahead. You've completed way more workouts. And as a result of that consistency, the results follow. Like, it's math, it's science at that point.
And you enjoy the process. And that's another thing. I think it's reframing, like you always say, Jord, peaceful success. Like, success doesn't have to mean that your legs feel like cinder blocks.
It's true.
And the other half of that quote, so for peaceful success, is if it costs you your peace, it's too expensive. So it's going back to that. How much pain, like, do you really want to be in for this short stint to get this temporary result, to celebrate that result, just for it all to like fade away back to the beginning again. It's painful.
It's still never enough. So Mare, talk to us about how you can actually build consistency without burning out.
Yes, because we love our practical strategies. So we definitely want to talk about what can you do now to build that kind of consistency? Because like we talked about, long-term fitness is about having a plan and a strategy. So first thing, you got to just ditch that all or nothing mindset. That's the first thing. Believing that you have to do everything right or it's not worth doing is 100% sabotaging your progress, because that mindset, T, you touched on this, turns one slip up into a big issue where it's not the slip up, it's how you respond to that slip up. So take that all or nothing mindset and really just ditch it. The second thing is creating a minimum effective dose, or what I like to call, and I think you girls might use this too, your BAMs. I call it your bare ass minimum with my clients. It is the smallest consistent action that you can commit to that is still going to allow you to make progress, even if you can't do it all. Because guess what? We can't do it all the time. So just to give you a practical example, like let's say you have a really busy work week coming up and you've looked at the calendar, you've tried to schedule your workouts, and the 4 or 5 workouts that just ain't happening this week. Well, what can you do? Instead of thinking, well, this week's nothing, it's a bust. Can you do 2? Can you do 1? Something is better than nothing. So what this does is it keeps the momentum going instead of you starting and stopping, because that just adds to that feeling of failure. Mm-hmm. And third, T already touched on this, be kind to yourself and give yourself permission to be flexible. Mm-hmm. Some weeks you're going to feel like you're rocking it. You're at the top of your game. Other weeks you're going to feel like you're on the struggle bus, and that's normal because life happens and life is not static. It changes. So you're not failing. You're just a human being literally living life. So stop holding yourself to an unrealistic standard of perfection, because success is built on what you do most of the time. And even more importantly, it's sustainable. So you're going to get results, achieve your goals, and you're going to feel good about it.
And what I realized being a perfectionist for pretty much my entire life is that you're really being quite mean to yourself.
So mean.
So mean. Nothing is ever good enough. You're always trying to push yourself harder. It doesn't even matter the circumstances you find yourself in. It's just never good enough. And like, what a bully I was to myself in these types of situations. And I know we're really focused on the quick fixes of the short-term diets and stuff like that people have been doing, but this really does carry over into everything else. It is the mindset you hold. And if you hold that for the quick fix and how you treat your body and what you feed yourself and how you move, you're certainly going to be doing that in other areas of your life too.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
That's a good point. So as we wrap up today's episode, we want you to just reflect on what we said. We want you to take a deep breath, and we want you to remember, you absolutely do not need to be doing it all perfectly, and certainly not all perfectly all at the same time. And the big takeaway is you don't have to overhaul your life to make progress. Real progress is small, sustainable actions over time. So it's that taking imperfect action, and all of it counts. So here's your challenge this week. Take a look at your current routine and ask yourself, where have you been setting unrealistic expectations for yourself? Like George said, like, be real. Where have you been maybe bullying yourself and not giving yourself the credit where it's due? And I want you to also look at, where in your life are you expecting perfection when what you need is just consistency? Then adjust your approach. So instead of doing it all at once, focus on those small achievable steps and just commit to being consistent, not for a day, not for 75, not for whatever it is, this challenge or that challenge, for the long haul. What can consistency look like for you 365 days of the year? So we want to thank you so much for tuning in today. We love when you are tuning in and we get to share our thoughts. So if this episode hit home for you, we would love to hear from you. We would also love for you to share it with people in your life who need to hear this message too, because we know that there are recovering perfectionists out there, and I bet you know some. So next week, we'd love for you to join us, because now that summer is in full swing, we are going to be talking about how you can still stay dialed in with your goals, even though you're attending those patio hangouts, the barbecues, the cottage weekends, and we want you to be able to enjoy summer. So we're going to talk about all that next week, and we'll see you then. And that's a wrap for today's episode of Get Sculpted. We hope you feel inspired, empowered, and ready to take the next step in your fitness journey. Remember, building your 2.0 body is a unique journey for you. It's about showing up for yourself consistently and not being perfect.
If you loved today's episode, don't forget to hit subscribe and leave us a review and tag us on social at getsculpted.ca. Your feedback helps us reach more women like you who are ready to cut through the noise and make lasting changes.
For more daily tips, inspiration, and behind-the-scenes content, follow us on Instagram and check out our handles in the show notes below. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time on Get Sculpted. Until then, remember this: getting sculpted isn't about working harder, it's about working smarter.